Now I'm actually on the live stream. So I'll just re-welcome everyone here, promise that we started on time, and we will. And I'm very, very excited to see so many people in person. And Rabbi Pearl will start us off with a few words. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Baruchim Habayim, everybody. Welcome. I am not a technical wizard. I just knew the button here because this is the microphone we've been using for 18 months now with our live stream. So I just knew that button, and when it flashes, it's not on. Now it's on. I just wanted to share with you a couple of thoughts on what this moment must mean for all of you. I know that as I tried to share with you in what I wrote for the Cantor and for Elaine and for his entire family, that there are moments in life that present us with opportunities for thought, for direction and reflection. And this is one of those moments, not just for the Cantor and Elaine, but for the entire congregation. You look back and you try and consider what has been good, what have you done, all the things that have been part of your lives together here in this congregation, in this sanctuary, in this building. And you try to think about all those things that meant something to you. What do you do with those thoughts that you have? I hope that they inspire you. I hope they give you a great deal of strength and courage to understand that life goes on, hopefully, and that we make the best of it always. Those are my wishes, not only for all of us in the congregation, particularly for the Cantor and for Elaine. I wanted to share with you a couple of moments that I recall as being very moving for me personally. One of them having to do with Elaine, who joined my Ba'alat Mitzvah class when I first introduced it here. I have to be honest with you, there were a couple of people who were surprised that she joined. Maybe you were the most surprised, maybe her husband was maybe even more surprised. And being in that class, I learned a lot about you personally. I learned how deep you are. We all know that you're funny. We all know that you're witty. We all know that you care about a lot of people. But you revealed some things about yourself and about your life that were so profoundly meaningful. I understood better why you were so beloved here. I understood better why you had such relationships here, and I understood better what Judaism meant to you. And that's what it was about, what it meant to you. And I recall from time to time when the Cantor would stand here on Shabbat, and either I would ask him or he would ask me about doing some davening. Now, davening for most people means just leading the prayers. But there's such a thing that we know called chazanut, which is a dying or dead art, maybe. But the Cantor grew up with that, and he knew it, and he loved it. And from time to time, he would either say to me, I want to do a shtickle chazanas. Play for me. And he would stand here, and I would watch him. I never watched the keyboard. I never watched the congregation. I watched him. And I watched the depth of his soul coming out. And I have no doubt that it must have affected each and every one of you. I can't imagine it didn't. There were times when I would ask him, when the kids were in here, to sing Omer Rabbi Eliezer, which has to do with children and their growing. He would sing sometimes Ritzei and other things. I remember this because I'm an aficionado of Chazanut, and I remember watching him and understanding. He would sometimes, by the way, either before or after he sang, he would share with the congregation a moment of what it meant to him and to his parents and to his growing up. And I'd sometimes find a little tear in his eye, not only for what was, but for what he wanted to share with all of you. I hope that each of you treasures all the good things that you have shared with these two people, with their entire family. I'm glad you're all here. I hope you celebrate only good things in all your lives together. We have a beautiful blessing that says, Shetichyu, I adapted a little bit, Shetichyu v'tehenu le'orech shanim tovot. May you live and enjoy many good years ahead, all of you together. Alisa.
Hi, everyone. Just a bit of housekeeping. Can you hear me in the back? Am I loud enough? Great. That's wonderful news. Come on in. Welcome. Don't be shy. Come on up to the front. Lots of seats here. It's nice to see our numbers growing. Hi, Ben. Come on in. All right, everyone. My name is Elisa Blumenthal, and I am the chair of the Board of Trustees and Governors here at the Astoria Center of Israel. And this year, I embraced a new role, that of the Journal Committee Chair. On behalf of the board, it is my very, very great privilege to welcome all of you to today's event, a celebration in honor of Cantor George and Elaine Lindenblatt, their 50 years of service to this synagogue. 50 years. It is both a marvel and marvelous. Today's celebration is meant to be exactly that, a joyous occasion to honor and describe the tremendous impact that George and Elaine have had on our center and all of us personally. When I was a new member, I listened with awe to the Cantor's davening and depended on Elaine's meticulously crafted and curated bulletin to stay abreast of the center's news. Generations of ACI members have done the same. In the midst of this, the Cantor's Jubilee year at the center, it is only fitting that we sit here today surrounded by George and Elaine's extended family and friends and reflect on the impact that they have had here at the Astoria Center of Israel. On behalf of the board, I invite you to sit back, relax, and please enjoy the speakers and the singing that will follow. At the very end of this event, we hope you will join us downstairs in the social hall for a reception and some general merrymaking, generously sponsored by the Gilad family. Thank you so much. Next up, I would like to invite Ben and Sue.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ben Gilad, but don't be fooled. I'm also a Lindenblatt. I'm really excited that we are celebrating what? Oh, moment. Sorry.
Eat the mic, get real close.
Okay. I'm really excited that we are celebrating my grandma and grandpa today because I celebrate them every day. I want to share with you a few of my favorite things about my grandma and grandpa. Let's start with grandpa, who will offer me to get me breakfast anytime, place, or day, and will always make me laugh. Grandma will always play cards, my favorite, 500 rummy, and she will beat me every single time. It gets annoying. She even beats me in ping pong. She's undefeatable. I learned how to ride a bike from the best. You may not know that my grandpa goes bike riding early in the morning every other day, and he is an expert in more than just singing. Grandma cooks all my favorite foods. Congrats to Grandma and Grandpa for 50 years at ACI. It happens to be that my last 11 were the best.
Hi, everybody. I can't believe it. I'm still taller than Ben. It's not going to be much longer. I'd like to welcome you all to George and Elaine's 50th Jubilee years at Astoria. So I'm Suzanne, I'm George and Elaine's kids. I think I know all of you, but I have been around for all 50 years of ACI. In fact, when Cantor George was singing his first high notes at the very first high holidays, I was warbling equally high notes from Rabbi Cass's study. My dad and I have a really good rhythm together. We share a birthday, August 10th. According to the secret language of birthdays, August 10th is the day of the velvet voice. Fitting, right? Not just for a cantor who sings beautifully, but also a tip to my dad's charming personality. I think that the velvet voice also acknowledges a deeper part of him, his ability to be present and soothing, especially in cases of caring for the sick, his commitment to refuah shlema. I remember that for years when I was growing up here in the synagogue, and after exhausting myself running up and down in the aisles during the service, my dad and I would take a quick visit after shul to visit someone at their home, or more likely at the hospital. So my dad could dart upstairs while I waited downstairs, so he could offer a smile, a comforting word, and depending on the audience, an off-color joke. That is Cantor George's velvet voice, the ability to be with and to be attuned to people when they're in need of kindness. But what's a velvet voice without lyrics? That's where the other half of the whole comes in, my mom, Elaine. You all know her as the quick-witted bulletin editor, but my sisters Eve, Nikki, and I have always known that at every wedding, every b'nai mitzvah that my dad officiated, it was my mom's words coming out of his mouth. My mom's words created countless articles about our family's histories, and even a book, Stop at the Red Apple, documenting her family's restaurant dynasty. I think Elaine's stylish words also made it into my college essays, but that is a speech for another time. George's secret weapon for performing in any weather, through any vocal fatigue, through a marathon Yom Kippur holiday, was Cantor Cohn's candies. Yes, friends and neighbors, Cantor Cohn was the kind of mentor young George needed when he first came to the center. Beloved by the congregation and very generous in his teaching, Cantor Cohn lives on in the way my dad's light up, in the way that he speaks of his mentor, and especially through the Cantor Cohn's candies, which you can always find in the door of my dad's car, melting in his pockets. I used Cantor Cohn's candies when I was doing voiceovers for years, and now you can also have access to them because they are hidden strategically downstairs when you come down afterwards. They are most everywhere, and my recommendation to you is don't have them before dinner because the menthol will knock you out. So there's always more to say, but I will just have to save it for the next simcha because Dad, our birthday is coming up soon. In the meantime, today happens to be George and Elaine's 54th wedding anniversary. So on three, can we all shout on three a big mazel tov? 1, 2, 3. Mazel tov! You guys are so good. I'm delighted to say that the velvet voice tradition carries on with the next generation as I introduce you to George and Elaine's granddaughter, Ella, who, rumor has it, will sing for you all.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Beautiful. Closer. Okay. Better. Awesome. First of all, it is lovely to see so many familiar and warm faces. I'm really glad to be here. So I would like to acknowledge the synagogue and this incredible community. Thank you for teaching me what it means to be Jewish, for hosting my bat mitzvah, inviting me to sing at the bima, handing me a Torah to carry during Simchat Torah, and really establishing a feeling of joy around the community. Now for our honorary guests. Since I don't want to keep you all here for hours, I narrowed it down to one thing about each grandparent that I love the most. Grandpa, for you, it has to be your compassion. Everything you take on is approached with a smile. Staying over and hearing you play the piano in the den for hours always brings life to the house. You care so deeply for the people around you and make sure to share and spread your joy. Grandma,
I feel like it's been said a lot until now, but it has to be your charming humor. Your humor is unique and causes contagious joy. Not only are your jokes funny, they are witty and reflect your genius. Playing Scrabble with you is the highlight of my week, and I find myself recycling your jokes every day. Together, you two are a power couple. There's no other way to phrase it. I love you both with all of my heart. Thank you for the years of joyous memories. Excuse me. This morning, my grandpa called me and he was like, Ella, can you sing one of those, Israeli songs? So I picked one that really speaks to what it means to be grateful for the people that we have in our lives. It was written during the pandemic in Israel. And I'll just sing you a little clip of it. ארץ של שמש על הים התיכון, הגלים פה לא שקטים, זה אומר המון. מהחול של הנגב ועד החרמון, בית חם ובו כולם אומרים שלום. מול כל מכשול וכל חידה, עוד תקוותנו לא עבדה, מה יוליד יום זאת לא נדע, ועל הכל נאמר תודה. כמו שהיה, ככה יהיה, עברנו הכל, נעבור גם את זה, לא ייפלו פנינו, זה קטן עלינו. כמו שהיה, ככה יהיה, עברנו הכל, נעבור גם את זה, לא ייפלו פנינו, זה קטן עלינו. And now I'd like to hand it off to the one and only Grandpa / Cantor George.
I cannot follow her voice. She's terrific. But I want to sing you a song which me and my brother did during the war, after the war. It's a Hungarian song. It's when the Nazis came in, we were hoping that peace will be whatever. We were hoping to go to Jerusalem. And I will ask my brother to come up and we sing it together, the song in Hungarian. But there's some Yiddish word, a Hebrew word you will hear from it. So he's got a better voice than I do. So well, we have him practicing. This is my younger brother. He used to be the Gestapo man because he was blondie. He saved us a lot of time during the war. And he's my other brother. He's not a singer. He was an Israeli. He was a paratrooper in the Israeli Air Force. And when he was a youngster, I had to defend him. After, when he came back from the army, he had to defend me. That showed his
I want to tell you, they sing. I just opened my mouth. And after we sing, I would like to say a couple words.
Majd megvillan már, zöld erdőben, kék mezőben, sétál egy madár. De micsoda madár, de micsoda madár, kék a lába, zöld a szárnya, engem oda van. De várj, madár, várj, de csak mindig várj. Gibone beszámigdas, ércianyt emelé, akkor lesz az már. De mikor lesz az már? De mikor lesz az már? Gibone beszámigdas, ércianyt emelé,
akkor lesz az már.
We not have to be here. The Holocaust almost wiped out. I know George longest anybody here. And I am happy he is my brother. In school, he was helping me, and his song was when we are child, and our Shabbos table was singing. I am touched to see him 50 years here, but 83 years before. And he's good. I took him to a place to sing. He didn't want to sing. So. And I tell you, very few people like him. Maybe I am better.
Thank you, thank you.
At this time, I'd like to ask Andrea Pack, longtime ACI congregant, to come up and share a few words on the Bima.
I made it. Okay. Welcome, family and friends. Is this working?
Get it real close.
Okay. Today, we gather to celebrate 50 years of dedication and devotion to the center and its membership by an outstanding couple, Cantor George and Elaine Lindenblatt. For 50 years, they have given selflessly to our members and their families. 50 years is quite a large chunk of time. How many of you are over 50? Wow, okay. And under? So we do have a good understanding of what 50 is all about. Thank you. Okay. What is it that they've accomplished during these 5 decades? I am sure that you already know, but I would like to review, okay? Ladies first, Elaine. Aside from being a mother, a grandmother, and having her own career as a published author, she has edited our bulletin, a necessary monthly publication. She brought the center news to the forefront. Would never know what was going on unless I read the bulletin. Gave us a sense of consistency in that the dates, hours of service, candlelighting time, yahrzeit dates, and events in general were accessible to all who received the bulletin. Now that takes a lot of time and effort to put that all together. Elaine participated in services, coordinated our White Elephant sales, and other events over the years. And most importantly, she accompanied the Cantor to many simchas as well as sad events. They were with us all the time. Did you ever taste her Hamantashen or Hanukkah cookies? They were the best. And my sister is still asking for the recipe, Elaine. Now for the Cantor. Cantor George continued the musical tradition of our late Cantor Cohn by chanting the age-old melodies of standard prayers, thereby keeping the memory of our people and Cantor Cone with us each time we congregate. He worked along with our choir master, Stephen Mayer, and the choir to achieve what I called heavenly music. He has been and continues to be available to us in our hour of need and in moments of joy. He cheers up the sick and frail with his constant phone calls and visits. He collaborated extremely well with our former Rabbi Alvin Cass, who is here today, for many years to bring us the most memorable services. There is much more to say about both George and Elaine, but you know the story as well as I do. You have your own anecdotes, your memories, your stories to share. May they both continue to enjoy good health as they spend well-deserved time with their children. Eve and John, raise your hands, please. Thank you. Boaz and Sue, right over here. Paul and Nikki, right up in the front. And of course, the lovely grandchildren. There's Benny. Noah, of course, is in Israel. Ella is with us. You heard her sing. Daniela and Frankie are here from Florida. They made that long trip to be with their grandparents. Join me, everyone, in wishing them well. Please stand. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely afternoon.
Next, I'd like to call up Robert Lindenblatt.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I happen to be a younger brother for the Cantor, and 50 years he's been here. 50 years. You realize it's a half a century? Lincoln would say 210 years ago he entered the synagogue. But I want you to know, I had connection to the synagogue before you had anything to do with this. I decided I talk about myself, not about George, because everybody knows George. Nobody knows me, so let me talk about myself. But after we luckily survived the Holocaust, survived the communist Hungary, was a revolution, and we escaped. All the brothers went different ways. One went to Israel, one went to England, one came to America. I was the one who came to America. I was 17 years old and came on a U.S. Navy ship, which took 2 weeks to arrive to the USA. And before me arriving, we have a meeting that we're going to have a very big reception of the arrival. An admiral will come and greet us, the Jewish refugees. And who was that admiral? If you believe it or not, Joshua Cohn. Joshua Goldberg from this synagogue. I mean, we were so admired. I never knew an admiral. I never knew that 60 years later I was speaking at the podium, or I would say at the Bema, and that he was a chief rabbi. But anyway, so let me tell you another thing about my connection to the synagogue. One of the first time I came here was a Friday night, a Shomrim night. Amazing speech by Rabbi Cass, amazing music by my brother, and it was so impressive, it's unbelievable. Then I can't enough word to tell you that many of my nieces, my grandnieces, bat mitzvah over here, which is amazing. And one of the last one, I couldn't overcome the joy and happiness of seeing that Ella reading from the Torah, which was scribed by my great-grandfather. In other words, the Ella read from the Torah, which was scribed by her great-great-great-grandfather, and which miraculously survived the Holocaust, arrived to America, and all the grandchildren, most of them were able to read from it. Now, let me tell you about a little bit George, because he's entitled to it. I'm 50 years, I'm entitled to tell you something about him. Our family came from an Orthodox family, and going back to our history, we had 4 great-fathers, like great-grandfathers, everybody else. Out of the 4 great-grandfathers, 3 were rabbis. Then my grandfather was a rabbi. And a young man was studying my great-grandfather, and he saw my mother. He said, I'd like to marry her. And my mother said, my grandfather is a rabbi, my father's a rabbi, I don't need another rabbi. But unfortunately, she'd be up there watching us. Her grandson and great-grandson became a rabbi, so couldn't go away for it. Talking about musically, our great-uncle was a cantor in Frankfurt am Main, Germany. Our other great-uncle was a choir director in a larger synagogue in Budapest, the Orthodox synagogue. So we have musical background. So George has a blood in the liturgical and the musical background. But as a young children, we went to Jewish schools, but during the Holocaust, during the communist era, the Jewish schools were closed, so we ended up in a public school. All of us in a public school were studying, and I must tell you, European education is a little bit better than American. Don't take it personally, but it's a little bit better. So every class had a musical class that taught them singing, and so on and so forth, and they picked out the better musically talented kids to a class so they can learn more music, more advanced music. So George certainly was picked, and they picked in the same class together. We worked very, very hard, and who was the best in the class? None other than Cantor George. But came end of the year, we got the report card. The best number the mark was able to get was 7.64321. So George only got 6, but he was the best in the class. But leave it to George. George is a very sweet guy, but if you don't treat him right, he can give it back to you. So he took the report card and literally tore it up in front of the teacher. So what happened after that? The 2 Jewish boys were kicked out from the class because they were only Jewish kids. Otherwise, would not be Jewish. He would have number 7, and that's it. But he was the best in the class. Now, going back to a little bit more musical thing, at the young age, actually our family originally came from Poland, so they were Galicianos. And my mother's side were more of a Hungarians. So where we lived, there was 2 separate synagogues. One was where the Galicianos went, and one where the real Hungarians went. So we certainly went with my parents until the cantor retired in the other synagogue, and because he emigrated to Israel, so they needed some young kids to sing in the choir. So not many Jewish kids were around, so I picked up my brother George and myself, and we sang with the cantor. The cantor who was before that over there singing with the cantor, he became one of the world famous cantor called Moshe Stern, who became a cantor in the great synagogue in Jerusalem. But anyway, so we went to the synagogue, and we worked very hard with the cantor and George, and I learned a lot of song, and George had a lot of interesting solos, which did very well. I can go on, and I can't tell you interesting stories, but they told me before I came up that I'm allowed to have 1 minute for every year he was here. So means that 50 minutes I'm allowed to be in the bima where the famous people were, including, let me tell you something about Suzanne Candy. She didn't tell you all of it yet. That Cantor Candy kept me alive for a long time. I will tell you, this is the only German stuff which I buy myself. I buy nothing German. That's the only thing I buy German because it's unbelievable. I send it to everybody who has a little sore throat and everything, and it's cured them. And I'll tell you honestly, I'm Jewish. I buy them wholesale. But all kidding aside, I mean, I have another. You know what? I better stop. I give you a break. It's enough for you guys. Been a pleasure. And George, and don't forget one thing. George was able to do it only one reason to be here 50 years, because he has Elaine. Without Elaine, forget it. But it was very good. Elaine, I thank you very much for keeping him in here 50 years. And I want to tell you something. George, we love you.
Thank you, Robert. That was amazing. I'd like to call up Beryl Camlet Rosendorf, please.
Hello, everyone. Cantor George, Elaine.
Just get real close to it, okay?
Sure. As I read the Cantor's letter announcing his retirement, I started to cry. I found myself going to my collection of journals from all the years, and especially to the 62nd one, the one that my father was the honoree for. You figure out the years, my numbers are bad. And it brought back all of the memories, many of which are coming back even more so strongly now. The journal was like a family album, holding many memories and reminders of good times, good friends, wonderful years at ACI, providing much comfort and eliciting many smiles. I guess for me, the Cantor's announcement of retirement was also the recognition and acknowledgement that we were coming to the end of an era. My parents and I moved to Astoria and joined ACI only a couple of years before the Lindenblatts came. Shortly after that, and after nearly 50 years with his main job at the USPS, my father retired and was full speed ahead in his participation at ACI. While he loved to sleep late in his retirement, Saturday mornings he was up bright and early. He'd put the key to the Ark in one pocket and a handful of candies in the other. They had to be hot cheese coffee candies. He enjoyed slipping candy into the hands of Cantor George. Everybody knew that Cantor George loved candy. And as the Lindenblatt girls arrived on the scene, they too were recipients of the sweet treats. Never mind that coffee was not the favorite flavor of little ones. My father had a beautiful voice, but he forgot that he was not the Cantor and needed to turn down the volume. But Cantor George always enjoyed the competition from the pews over there. Sitting where my dad always sat is my brother right now. This sounds as though it's more about my father than Cantor George and Elaine, but when it comes to ACI, the relationships formed there are inexplicably interwoven. Cantor George and Elaine are his family have been a very important part of my life, as they've been for so many other former and present congregants. We old-timers were here for the birth of their daughters, their marriages, celebrations, simchas. He and Elaine were there for my family's good times and those that were not so good. Cantor George officiated the funerals of my parents, Gussie and Joe, and he performed the ceremony for my husband and I. And Elaine and George were also honored guests at our wedding, along with some other ACI family who are no longer with us. But we're all a part of that family and part of the wonderful memories that I mentioned earlier. Lenny and I wish you and Elaine, George, a very happy wedding anniversary and a very long and healthy and happy retirement, and to start you on your way to that sweet and happy time from Dad.
Thank you, Beryl. That was beautiful. I'd like to call upon George and Elaine's daughters, Nicole and Eve.
Welcome, family and friends. It is an honor and a privilege to be here celebrating this milestone for Cantor George and Elaine Lindenblatt, or as we like to call them, Dad and Mom. For 50 years is a long time. For our youth, it is a concept in the far, far future. For the elderly, it is a time that has passed, maybe in a blink, filled with memories. For me, it is a lifetime. For my parents, it is the majority of their life that they have committed personally, professionally, religiously, and spiritually to Astoria Center of Israel. I don't remember much of when my father first became cantor here, but I do remember all the welcoming faces. Rabbi and Miriam Cass and their families, Cantor and Hannah Cohen and their family, Feeney and Mike Trier, Sylvia and Bernie Steinberg, to name a few. My parents were greeted with welcome arms, and soon my father became a comforting soul to all those who crossed his path. My mother instantly joined my father in serving this community. She was not only the meticulous editor of the monthly bulletin and coordinator of various volunteering events, tasks which she met with a great sense of responsibility and integrity, but also a confidant and loving presence to all of ACI's family. When this building was filled to the rafters with congregants over the high holidays, my father's voice would fill the room, not only for those to hear, but for those to feel.
I remember my excitement every Saturday morning because this is when we, just my dad and I, would come here together, dressed in my finest Shabbat wear, feeling like my dad's wing girl. The anticipation of the car ride was palpable. For when I walked through those doors, I was no longer Nikki, but I was the Cantor's daughter. This title bestowed upon me was the equivalent of being crowned queen in the land of 7-year-olds. And it happened every consecutive Saturday. My dad's uplifting energy and strength was commanding yet welcoming, something I especially love to experience from high up in that balcony. From this bird's eye view, it was so obvious why my dad belonged here as a leader. His energy matched the grandness of this sanctuary, and his seemingly effortless yet powerful expression not only guided but connected the entire congregation to themselves and to one another. His love and joy of cantorial music shone through in his capacity to guide congregants to deepen their own spiritual connections. My father's pure love for and role as cantor crossed over into personal relationships that have blossomed into an extended family. He took his role as leader, clergy, and fellow spiritual seeker to heart, roles that expanded into our home, teaching us Jewish values and the ways music can bring us closer to God. Being cantor at ACI was not just a job to our father, it was a purpose: to serve, to love, and to lead. At ACI, my father and mother were the bedrock for the community when rabbis came and went. My dad always made time to listen more than he spoke, and when he did, it was with words of wisdom, comfort, and the honesty that we all needed to hear. And my mother always made time to support this community, whether through her generous acts or her empathetic ear. All the life cycle events Cantor, George, and Elaine have been privy to throughout the years in this community touch all that are here today. 2 full generations of life milestones. That is a rare and remarkable feat.
It is bittersweet that after 50 rich years, my father will say goodbye to the pulpit. These last 5 decades have been full of simchas, losses, rites of passage, and blessings. There will be a void without his physical presence, but his and our mom's essence will remain. Our parents, Cantor, George, and Elaine Lindenblatt, were and will always be the foundation on which ACI was built over these last 50 years. May they be blessed with full hearts as they reflect on the countless lives they've touched with their goodness, generosity, and love. At this time, I'd like to invite Rabbi Cass to say a few words.
Thank you so much. Wow, what an evening. George, only you could have elicited all of this love and this affection. There is so much warmth that exudes from what is transpiring here this evening, and it reflects the fact that throughout your life, you have earned the superlatives that all of us are heaping upon you this evening. You know, you think about superlatives, and I'm reminded about that very successful businessman who, more than anything else in the world, wanted to be a great golfer. One day, he hit the ball, teed off, it soared into the air, and then it rolled onto the green right into a cup. The man was so excited. He had achieved the greatest dream of a golfer. He had hit a hole in one. Very excitedly, he ran towards his caddy and he said, "Quick, tell me, what did I do right?" Well, George, I don't know if you're a golfer or not, as well as I know you. I know you're a biker, and I know you're into water polo. But to my knowledge, you're not a golfer. But in any event, you have hit a hole in one. You are a spiritual success in every ounce of your being. And that's why all of us are here today, because we couldn't stay away. We wanted to express from the bottom of our hearts our appreciation for what you represent. But like that golfer, it's very important for us to find out what it is that you did right, so that all of us, in our own way, can try to do something right and make something out of our lives, so that we too can be exemplary human beings like yourself. There's no doubt but that you have done so many things in this world that are right. In the first place, you became a cantor. I'm certain that all of us here are grateful that you became a cantor. You've thrilled and inspired audiences in this synagogue for so many, many years. That explains the longevity that you have manifested in a profession where that is very, very rare. Besides all of that, I'm grateful that you became a cantor, because in all likelihood, we would never have met otherwise. But once you became the cantor of this synagogue, and we had the ability to stand next to each other on this pulpit, we developed a wonderful and warm friendship between us and your whole family, and I'm ever so grateful for that. I was the rabbi of the synagogue for 14 years, but our friendship has lasted 50 years, just like your tenure here. And I know it's going to continue to endure for as long as life pulsates within all of us. I know my daughter Sarah was so excited to be able to come with me here tonight because this is really a family affair. All of your children were born during your years here in Astoria. My children were born during your years in Astoria. And I remember that the children on the high holy days became occasionally bored in the afternoon, and they would go to my apartment and they would take a nap in my apartment. And it was always so wonderful to have that place on 3060 Crescent Street, which was filled with young children yelling and having a great time and just enjoying each other. I love to see your children on the pulpit here because it made me feel less self-conscious when my children would come up on the pulpit and also interfere with the progress of the services. George, another thing you did right, I think the greatest thing that you did right was to marry Elaine. What a remarkable woman she is. She is truly an Eshet Chayil in every sense of the term. And I know that everybody here in this synagogue is so grateful to her. She's classiness personified. You know that the bulletin that she edited for so many, many years has been honored by the United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism as one of the greatest and most exemplary congregational bulletins published throughout the entire country. Elaine, only you with your literary skills, with your love of service, and your desire to complement your husband could possibly have manifested this kind of dedication and devotion to the Astoria Center of Israel. And I know that I express the sentiments and emotions of everybody who's here in saying that this evening is your evening very, very much as to the extent that it's George's evening. Both of you are together. It's impossible to conceive of your being separated. The only thing that pains me is that I know that my wife Miriam would have been so happy to be here because she realized the beauty of the team, the two teams that we all represented. But I know that from on high, she's deriving a tremendous amount of nachas and satisfaction from what is occurring. You know, there's a story about a Hasidic rabbi who commented on the widespread custom of giving gifts to newborn babies. And he said he would, if he could, give a gift to every newborn baby of caring about other people instead of just themselves. And that's the key to your life. You care about other people, and it's not just you. And that willingness to give of yourself is what you're all about. It's like that bracha. You know, the bracha which appointed the Jewish Kohanim to be the leaders of the people commanded them, levarech et Amo Yisrael b'yahava. They were not just supposed to bless the children of Israel, they were to bless the people with love, that loving spirit. That loving spirit just comes so naturally and so instinctually to you, and it's manifest in every aspect of your being. The Cohn family is here tonight. We've heard a good deal about Richard Cohn. George, I don't think that there could be a more stirring example of the mitzvah of kibud ava'im, of mipnei sevat takum, v'hadarta pnei zakein, of honoring older people, of giving the hoary head the kind of respect and reverence to which it is entitled. I was always moved about the way that on your travels back and forth on Saturday morning, you always made the stop on 35th Street to pick up Cantor Cohn. While you were there, you had a glace of latte. I understand that I used to say it was a cup of coffee, but Elaine told me it was a glace of latte. But in any event, the two of you shared time together, and you always brought the Cantor here. And the Cantor's family, I know, feels this same sense of closeness and connectedness that is the example of ahava at its very best. When it came to the congregation, Robert, I don't think that there was any member of the Astoria Center of Israel who didn't get a camera at a good price at Cambridge Camera Shop. That was all bi'ahava. It was all an example of love, because George couldn't say no. Anyone approached him about anything, and he was happy to do it. George, I'll never forget those wonderful times that we enjoyed together at the New York Athletic Club. You know, for many people, the New York Athletic Club is an example of a place where Jews are not allowed. They're not welcome. But George made them welcome. He certainly made me welcome. And I know that we had wonderful swims together. He was highly respected, and his skills in water polo are legendary. You know, George is a magnificent athlete, and to this day, he's powerful and strong and skilled, and he exemplifies the whole human being who develops every aspect of his being. But the most important part of George is this spiritual side that he manifested here at the Astoria Center of Israel. Many of you will remember that biblical story of Jacob, the patriarch, who had this dream of a sulam mutzav arza v'rosho magia shamaima. There was this ladder that was stretching from earth to heaven, and spiritual beings climbed up and down the ladder. And George, you have been the kind of person who was able to get people to travel that ladder, to go up and down and rung by rung, step by step. All of us followed your example, and it enabled us to realize our spiritual potential. That's a very great gift, and it's a wonderful accomplishment. And I think it's the essence, really, of what you've been able to do right throughout your entire life. I know that I express the emotions not only of the entire Cass family, but of everyone who is here, that God should just bless you and Elaine and your whole beautiful, wonderful family with many, many more years of good health and well-being and happiness. And I, for one, feel privileged that I know at least one person who achieved a hole-in-one. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Cass. I now have the distinct pleasure of introducing and asking to come to the stage one of our honorees, Elaine Lindenblatt.
very, very close to me.
I know. Well, I'm speechless. But don't let that stop me from talking. I don't know what to say because I'm really overwhelmed by this outpouring of just wonderful people talking, even the people I'm related to, just everyone. Thank you all so much. At the risk of not omitting anyone, I won't omit anybody. There's nobody even I can single out because it's been so overwhelming. But let me try. Well, it is wonderful to be back in our reopened synagogue, looking out on the familiar faces of congregants and friends. I want to welcome as well family members, extended family, including, of course, our children, Eve and John, who was here but had to, I believe, catch a plane, Suzanne and Boaz, and Nicole and Paul. They come from great distances, many of them. We're thrilled to have them all together. Noah, our grandchild, our oldest grandchild, is watching, we hope, from Israel, unless she's sleeping right now, but she will see this. And then we have here today with us, luckily, Ella, Ben, Daniela, and Frankie. Words can't express our feelings toward all of them for their constant support and love. Up front, I do want to express our thanks to ACI Board Chair and Chair of this wonderful day, Elisa Blumenthal, and her husband Rafi, who with tireless devotion created this event and the 2021 ACI Journal, as well as recall the keepsake journals edited by Billy Weber. This year's journal reflects our changes as a congregation, you will see, but it is nonetheless certainly important and certainly meaningful to us. You know, to show you my depth of commitment today, I even gave up watching a Yankee game on the television to be here. I just wanted you to know that. And as you know, I'm a writer. A lot of people have said that. Yet more original than anything I have ever written or could write is a four-letter word called life. Life confronts us with immeasurable challenges and, if I want to do the jargon of baseball, some fastballs, a few wild pitches, and occasionally a home run. Today feels like one of those. I'm grateful that after coming to ACI as a family after 50 years, I was then given the opportunity to edit our monthly bulletin, a channel of info for congregants living near and far. This exasperating but highly satisfying assignment kept me in the pulse beat of current doings. From the start, I had quality help. The inimitable Cantor Richard Cohn has been mentioned many times. George's legendary predecessor, an ACI administrator. Look for George's remarks about him, incidentally, in the journal. Then Mike Dreyer. Some of you may remember Mike, my go-to for all questions on ritual, because you know I did not grow up with too much Jewish ritual, although I had parents who really conveyed to me what it was like to live Jewishly and be a Jewish person in their caring and in their giving. We have the inimitable Cantor Richard Cohn, George's legendary predecessor, an ACI administrator. Okay, we've said that. Mike Dreyer, we've said, excuse me. You can see I'm a little fachaded from all this already. And you know, in the office, as I began doing the journal, there lurked in the office a secret weapon. Secretary Sarah Somer. I wish her her son, who passed away recently, a terrible loss to the congregation, Mark Somer, that loss. I wish he were here to hear this. You see, I believe that Sarah Somer's mind was the first computer known to mankind. In this little Sarah Somer, inside this mind, if I needed any information, any fact, any answer, there it was, and Sarah remembered it, an incredible memory. And she was the first office person that I worked with. Through the years, we had a series of worthy office managers, culminating with the Sterling Judith Reinhardt, the last office manager that I worked with before we closed. You know, we have been closed for over a year. All of these people spent hours amassing and overseeing each bulletin from edited copy to final mailing. Susan Cohn, whose impeccable standards continues as Yorkshire Chair volunteer, compiling a monthly list plus mailed notes to every bereaved family. And I've had the pleasure of meeting by phone our latest phone office entry, the lovely Rose. From a list of milestones, though, here through the years, I'd like to share a few that stand out for me. As you know, we arrived at ACI as a young family with a toddler and an infant. Each of our life cycle rituals, from the namings of 1-month-old Suzanne and then Nicole, to Eve's Hanukkah, Bat Mitzvah, were enacted right on this bima. Then came the namings of granddaughters Noah and Ella, and finally, it's a boy, the bris of Ben. 10 years ago, after 2 years of study with Rabbi Pearl and a class of 7, I was honored to be part of an adult bat mitzvah ceremony. This was important to me because I felt it had kind of filled in a part of my early life that was kind of, as I say, sparse in ritual. My most moving experience, however, actually 2 moving experiences, relate to the bat mitzvah of granddaughter Noah, followed by sister Ella 2 years later. There is a Torah, and it was mentioned by Robert in his expansive talk. There is a Torah in the Lindenblatt family for 6 generations, penned by George's great-grandfather, ritual artist Aryeh Steinberger, in pre-World War II Budapest, a remarkable story of survival. First Noah, then Ella, read from that Torah, the first women ever to do so, because you are talking about an Orthodox family where women did not read from the Torah. The pathos of those moments for me were simply overwhelming, and I will never forget them. Our thanks to everyone who has participated and will still participate, I understand, in today's service, to Boaz and Suzanne for hosting the reception that follows downstairs that we hope you will all see us at. We thank each of you for honoring us by your presence today, either here or online. It's scary for me to think there are people out there I can't see who are seeing me, but there they are. And with your good health, and we wish you good health and good times. And now, as George assumes the title of Cantor Emeritus for the Astoria Center of Israel, our hope for this congregation is for wise counsel to guide its ongoing legacy. I thank you all so much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Elaine, for your beautiful remarks. I want to wish everyone a good afternoon, or perhaps I should say an early good evening. I want to thank everyone who attended today's extremely special event, those of you who were able to attend in person, and those of you who are attending online. As you can probably tell, this joyous event could not have happened without the support, guidance, and help from a number of people. First and foremost, thank you to George and Elaine for working with me through thick and thin to pull this off. It happened. We did it. Additional thanks go to Elaine for putting so much painstaking care into the front matter of this year's journal, showcasing 50 years of Lindenblatt excellence at the center. If you haven't already checked out our journal this year online, I encourage you to do so. It's beautiful, and I thank Elaine so much for her efforts to make it even more so. Second, thank you to Sue and Boaz for helping to organize this event and very generously sponsoring the entire reception downstairs immediately following the speaker portion of today's events. I also want to say thank you to Rabbi Pearl. Thank you for your support and your advice over these last 18 months during my tenure as board chair. On behalf of the board, we thank you for the arduous work you have done to keep our center going during the pandemic. You helped us be socially distant, but spiritually together. I would also like to thank Center co-presidents Judy Markowitz and Cynthia Grootman for their ongoing support of my initiatives on the board and their support of this year's journal and its new format. Thanks also go to Judy Pearl, who managed all of the emails that you got and all of the reminders. We thank Judy Pearl so much for preparing all those, keeping track of our friends and family list, and helping to publicize and prepare for this very special event. Thank you to the Board of Trustees and Governors for supporting this event and the journal along with me along this past year. Rabbi Cass, I want to give you a special thank you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak today at this event in person. Your presence and your words brought deeper meaning and relevance for all of us. Thank you. Thank you so much to our newest amazing office administrator, Rose Doji, who worked tirelessly over the past 2 months to process and design the ads for the journal. We would never have been able to do this without you, Rose, so if you're watching, thank you. On a more personal note, I would like to extend my most sincere gratitude to my family. I'm going to look directly at them into the camera for a minute. Especially my talented, supportive, and endlessly patient husband, Rafi, my loving, kind, and energetic sons, Max and Jacob, and to my parents, Ralph and Marcia Jacobs, who are all up in Massachusetts right now having a rockin' good time. I would never have been able to do all the work for the board and for the journal without your staunch support and patience. I would be entirely remiss if I did not thank Sidel Diner and Susan Cohn, our forever journal editors emeritus, for setting such a high standard for the journal. In time, I hope that I can produce an online publication and an in-person event that you feel does justice to the high bar you established and maintained for so many years. The board and I are in your debt. I promise I'm wrapping up. Today's live stream did not happen by magic, even if it appeared so. I would like to thank Ayelet Pearl and Stephanie Luxembourg for meeting with me multiple times, answering endless emails so that the live stream for today's event would work. Hopefully it did. I'd like to thank Sam Stabler and Robin O'Hanlon for stepping up and handling today's on-site tech work. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Robin. They're the reason we were able to live stream today and reach out to friends and family who were not able to attend in person. Thanks also to Ari Gershon for helping to set up today and doing so much logistical background work. Finally, promise, I would like to thank all of you for attending today and for all of you who placed ads in this year's 95th anniversary journal. Think of that. ACI's 95th anniversary journal. The journal helps support our beautiful but aging building, along with all of the center's outreach services programming for youth and adults. Baruch Hashem, with all of your help, may this sanctuary see 150th anniversary. Elaine and George, would you please come to the bima?
I just want to say thank you for everybody for coming, and I'm going to miss this place, but hopefully I'll be coming around, say hello. And I never want to say goodbye because I always like to say hello instead of saying goodbye. And without my other half, I must say, anytime I speak, not now, she writes my speech. This time she didn't write it, so I don't know what to say.
Which they're relieved to hear.
Which you're relieved to hear, she says. So thank you again for coming, and I hope you all can come downstairs. Plenty of food downstairs, and it's kosher. Today is a fast day, but don't worry about it. It's a minor fast day. Don't tell that to God. Just keep it quiet. It's already at nighttime, so don't worry about it. Okay? Thank you again, and I hope to see you.
Would the extended Lindenblatt family like to come to the bima for a song?
Come on, we sing it together.
Yes, Benny. Come on up.
Frankie, where's the yarmulke?
Where's Daniela? Daniela?
Okay, what are we singing?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Come on, yeah. Come on, help.
That's all right.
Help me out.
Put this away.
It's like, I don't know.
After they sing, I'm going to close them together and allow them to go downstairs to the social hall. And then once they've exited, we will all follow to go down to the social hall to enjoy the beautiful reception that the Gilad family has so generously sponsored.
Daniela.
Daniela.
Okay, go ahead.
You start.
Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'Terem Kol, Esir Nivra, V'et Nasa, V'Chetzo Kol, Azai Melech, Shemo Nikra, V'Acharei, Kichot HaKol, לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא עובד והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם השם מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא יתעשה בחפצו כל הזמן מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי תקפוץ הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא עובד והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם השם מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא יתעשה בחפצו כל הזמן מלך שמו נקרא אחרי תקפוץ הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא עובד בתפארה והוא היה והוא עובד בתפארה ואין שני להמשילו להכפילה
בלי ראשית
בלי תכלית ולא העוז זה המשם והוא עלי וחי גואלי
וצורכב לי, בצרה, והוא ניסים, ומנוסים, ונתכסי, ויום אקרא. אדוני השם מלך בטרם בו יציר בודד, יצא במסתו כל הזין מלך שמוניקה, ואחר לכיפות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה, והוא יהיה ותפארה. אדוני השם מלך בטרם בו יציר ימלא, יצא בחסדו כל הזין מלך שמוניקה, ואחר לכיפות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה, ותפארה, והוא היה והוא הווה, ותפארה. בידו אפקיד רוחי, בעת תישן והעירה, ועם רוחי גבייתי, אדוני לי ולא יירא. אדון עולם השם מלך בטרם כל יציר בודד, נשא בחסד כל הזין מלך שמוניקה, ואחר לכיכרות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא, הוא היה והוא הווה, והוא יהיה ותפארה. אדון עולם השם מלך בטרם כל יציר בודד, נשא בחסד כל הזין מלך שמוניקה, ואחר לכיכרות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה, ותפארה, והוא היה והוא הווה, ותפארה.
Thank you very much. I hope to meet you downstairs.
Thank you, everybody. There will be a very yummy dinner downstairs. So have fun.
Made by our dad, and a special thank you to our savta for making quiches.
Very good. Thank you.
So if you can just stay seated for a moment so that the Lindenblatt family can head downstairs. And the extended Lindenblatt family can also head downstairs. Can't wait to see you there.